based on a true story. 5 college graduates decide the best way to get back at the unfair economy and live the life they've always wanted is to steal from Chicago's richest and give it to themselves. 2-time Academy Award nominee Michael Shannon stars in this gripping crime thriller about recent college graduate Lance Zutterland, played by Patrick Schwarzenegger, who leaves school in debt, way in debt, realizing everything he had worked towards was built on a lie. He is soon pulled into a criminal underground operation and finds himself in over his head with no way out. It is, of course, the movie called Echo Boomers, which we are talking about this week. It debuts this week. The film also stars Alex Pettyfer, also known for such films as Magic Mike and I Am Number 4. Lesley Ann Warren, seen in such TV series as Community, Daredevil, and Desperate Housewives, and Hayley Law, who viewers will recognize from Riverdale and the Netflix series Altered Carbon. Our guest today is Seth Savoy. He is a Cajun American film director and screenwriter from Little Rock, Arkansas. He studied filmmaking at Columbia College, Chicago. That's where he made multiple award-winning short films that screened at more than 65 film festivals around the world. Woo! In 2015, Seth took his script, The Echo Boomers, to the Sundance Film Festival and won an independent pitch competition, which caught the industry's attention. Congratulations, man. 5 years later, he has directed Echo Boomers, which we are talking about today. Seth, welcome to the Con Guy Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We are glad to be talking with you. Me and Luke just watched your feature debut last night, and I got to say, this is a pretty spectacular. For a first-time filmmaker, this is pretty astounding. This is the style, the size, the scope, and you got some pretty cool actors in there.
Thanks, man.
You tell us a little bit about the film and how it came about.
Yeah, so I really found the story in 2013, and I had just graduated from film school in Chicago at Columbia, and I was feeling this like pressure of like finding and creating my own work, and I spent a hefty amount of savings going to film school. And then I got to the finish line and I couldn't really find a job. And I realized that there's no shortage of filmmakers in the industry. And kind of serendipitously enough, I came across these Chicago headlines in these newspapers about these group of college kids that were breaking into homes. And like, weirdly enough, I could understand their frustration on like a personal level. And so I just kind of got it about these college kids that were broke, and they played by the rules, and they got to the finish line and nothing was there. And they had this like angst and kind of anger about it. And so I just kind of took that and ran with it, and it became Echo Boomers.
Nice. And because me and Luke were talking, it's like, wow, you say that this is based on actual events. Do you know what was the final outcome of some of these kids that were breaking into homes and whatnot?
Yeah, they definitely got caught. But the biggest kind of message that we were kind of looking to send on the true story aspect is more about this idea of that people really felt this way. And that's the most important thing when it comes to a true story aspect, is that like there were kids out there doing this, yes, but more importantly, how they felt. This is exactly how they felt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how important was the casting process, and like what was that process like, and why did you select the actors you did?
Man, that casting process took us like 3 years. So we made a choice, right? So like we could so Michael Shannon found it after Sundance, and we sat down with his team and we made a choice. Like, do we choose the most popular, hottest millennial actors of the time, or do we go this other route where we're picking the next generation of truly respected actors like Michael Shannon?
Mm-hmm.
And so something about that second option just like seems so much more appealing, like finding these performers that I just really respect as artists seemed way better than just a popular actor.
Right.
So we went that way, and it took a long time. It took like 3 years to find the actors that we were really crazy about. But I think it paid off. Like, Alex is someone who was in the spotlight and was a superstar for the longest time. And I'm glad that he got to come back with this movie that was something different for him. And then, Patrick had just like never been given this opportunity to be like the real lead of a movie and show off his chops.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he kills it,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Like, can you talk for a second? What was it like? Because Patrick, he's lived in the spotlight forever, and so like people are going to be comparing him to this other big time actor that he's kind of he's related to a bunch of big time actors now. He's in, he's the son of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now is he the brother-in-law of Chris Pratt?
Chris Pratt, yeah, yeah.
He's in a show business family. What was it like working with him?
He was fantastic. He understands. I'm so blessed and thankful that Patrick read the script and saw this crazy idea that I had and understood it from a social message standpoint. Mm-hmm. And, when your mom's Maria Shriver, I felt like that kind of had something to do with it. He's a little bit more in tune with what's going on because, at least politically, but he just got it. And we really kind of, like, when you see Patrick, he's not his dad. He's smaller than his dad. He's a little bit more personal. Like, you just realize he's kind of the average guy. I mean, he's ridiculously good looking, and we like kind of played that down a little bit. But outside of that, he's just a regular dude, and that's what made him work for this role. Yeah,
I remember out here in Los Angeles, this restaurant called the Apple Pan Restaurant. It's a little bitty diner where you get apple pies. And I was sitting there eating one day, then all of a sudden there's this big commotion, and Patrick Schwarzenegger sits down right next to me at the Apple Pan, and everybody's like, "Do you know who that is?" He gets a lot of attention, even though you guys really did kind of downplay him a little bit, but he did really well. But speaking of actors, Michael Shannon, I tell you what, anytime you put Michael Shannon in a film, that film gets heavy and deep and awesome. I mean, as a first-time feature director, I know you have quite a few shorts under your belt, but like directing Michael Shannon, how intimidating was that?
Oh my God. I mean, you got to think. So there's Lesley Ann Warren, who's been nominated for an Oscar, and then there's Michael Shannon, who's been nominated for 2. And so, like, I'm kind of like really worried about the first day of directing. You know what I mean? Mike's done this probably 150 times. And I'm doing it for my first time, right? And so, as the director, you're supposed to have kind of all the answers, and I didn't. And I'll always say that I don't. And Mike respected that. And he was very patient with me, and he created this environment of just like letting me make mistakes, which was so important to just helping me grow as a director. And I feel like he didn't say this, but I feel like there was this unspoken, just like, I care about you as an artist. Let's make something beautiful. And maybe that was just in my head, but.
That's cool.
Can you tell us a little bit about the title Echo Boomers and why you chose to go with that and what it kind of means for the film?
Yeah, so like we didn't touch on it too much in the movie itself, but while we were creating this, and I think it kind of comes across, even though it's kind of unspoken, but while we were writing it, we were kind of coming up with our own definitions of it. And what we kind of explained is like the term Echo Boomers is kind of a derogatory term for a millennial who has a degree and can't get a job. And so that's kind of what we ran with throughout the entire movie. And so, yeah, if you look up like the real definition, it's just a millennial. But for us, while we were creating it, that's kind of what we ran with.
Nice. Yeah, because it kind of refers back to the boomers of the 60s, like that generation. And is it kind of like in a derogatory way, kind of like these kids are the echo of the previous generation?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And we really wanted to set up this kind of like the age-old millennials versus baby boomers. You know, it's always going on. There's always friction. There's always this versus. And that's kind of what we wanted to create.
That's cool.
Nice. Now, there were several like rules within the film that just like popped up on screen. I like the kind of graphic stylization you did with that. And like, how did you come up with the rules for the film?
Well, actually, originally it was the rules and there were also chapter titles. And I feel like it just kind of got too confusing. So I had to pick one. And the rules were something that I feel like everyone can relate to on some level. And I thought it was just super fun. And then as we started making it, you know, you see the newscasts and stuff that are kind of incorporated in the film. And I kind of wanted the film to feel like social media, where you're like always getting content and things are always popping up. And it's kind of like this just consistent stream of media. And that's kind of where the rules came in too. You know, those rules are just kind of fun, flashy little pieces on the screen.
You know, it was interesting that, like, Patrick's character, you know, he's an art major. It was kind of cool. You were making this kind of the statement, but you're also kind of poking fun a little bit. As a liberal arts major, and me and Luke are screenwriters ourselves, and I was a writing major. You know, we all make jokes about, oh, you got an English degree, you're going to be working at Starbucks. You know, like with Patrick's character, you know, he's an arts major who graduates $60,000 in debt, which by today's standards, that's not that much. Which is kind of sad to say. But although I never like making assumptions about people, I guess it's safe to say that Patrick in real life probably has never been $60,000 in debt for student loans. So that he's struggling to pay off. So you probably, I guess, how'd you get through the challenge of helping your actors who probably, this is not their social status in life, to kind of like identify with that and play these people that are really struggling with an economy which has kind of basically shut them out?
Yeah, you know, I think Patrick, a lot of his kind of homework and figuring this character out, he's just an unbelievably smart guy. And he's very in tune with just social media, being a millennial. He's just understands it. And I found it very interesting that Patrick has literally never had any of these problems that we're depicting, right? But he wanted to play this role. And I feel like he probably has had so many friends go through this process. And when Patrick and I did talk about it, he was saying that that's kind of what wanted him to do this, is like all his friends are dealing with this problem that he's never had to deal with. And it's a real problem. And I think that's what kind of inspired Patrick to really start like diving into this.
Now, I actually was an art major, and I went to an art college called Columbus College of Art and Design, and kind of had those feelings in my head, like, you know, you're going to get out, you're going to be making $100,000 instantly. But a lot of people like end up different places. Like I was working construction for a couple of months with my dad. And then then I ended up at a sign company making like minimum wage and all that. But you kind of like, you don't realize how hard you got to like kind of push once you get out. So it's such a relatable subject. Now, as a filmmaker, and I also did filmmaking through college, which led me here to LA and doing screenwriting and all that. But yeah, so like, were there certain films, like especially like heist films, that kind of inspired you in this, that you kind of like, oh, like I want to do something kind of like this? I know there's like Point Break or like Ocean's 11, all that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah, Ocean's 11 was a big inspo.
Yeah,
for sure. And so Ocean's 11 and Fight Club were like the two that you were like, all right, how do I like really marry these two films and make it original still? But yeah, we really wanted to make this movie that was so fun and flashy, you didn't realize it was political commentary. And I feel like we did a pretty good job of that.
Yeah. I like the way that it was political commentary without being political commentary, you know, without being like, without wagging a finger in the face. It was fun because you kind of gave perspective to both sides in this, which was kind of cool, especially, and I don't want to ruin any part of the movie, but there's a part towards the end where you really feel for some of the quote unquote the victims of this towards the end. And I'm like, wow, that was a powerful scene there. Speaking of these houses, these gigantic houses you had in the film, and for those of you who are watching this, that the film details people breaking into gigantic houses and basically, you know, Robin Hooding it, taking from the rich and giving to themselves, which is kind of cool. Did you trash some of these houses like it appeared?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Which I'm a really big fan of only shooting on set.
Yeah.
And I think that it just adds something to the film that's just irreplaceable. And so I fought for that really, really hard. And I pretty much got to do that everywhere except some of the, like, there's one big break scene at the beginning that I definitely had to shoot on a stage, because like the producers are like, Seth, what do you want me to do? Like, how do I convince someone to you know, mess up your house like that? But yeah, it honestly, you know, we went to so many thrift shops and, you know, just like alleys picking stuff up just because we knew we could break this stuff, but it ended up being great.
Oh my gosh.
Was it kind of fun breaking? Did you get to break anything while you were on set?
I did. Dude, it's interesting to think though, because like what ended up happening was I thought that the actors would have like this wild time breaking all this stuff. And some of them did, while like Jacob Alexander, who plays Chandler, I was like, hey man, how'd you like it? And he was like, dude, blacked out, didn't know what I did, but it felt great. while other actors would, break one thing and they'd just be like, oh, that felt so wrong. So it was interesting.
It was
clearly
cool.
They weren't Nirvana fans, I guess.
Right. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Because it was interesting though, the way that you kind of tied the carnage of the breaking and destroying to each of the characters, what their personal background and their stories, because they broke it systematically. They chose the things they wanted to break up. And I like the way you added that layer into the film. It wasn't just mad. We're not just mad, but we have deep wounds that we're trying to kind of like go over here.
Definitely.
I love that.
Yeah, great. That's personally probably my favorite part of the movie, is that and probably the ending. But when we were creating this kind of like act structure and what we wanted the movie to be like, we wanted people to get away. Like we wanted the bad guy to get away. You know what I mean? Because sometimes in life, that's just how it goes. And we wanted to create these characters that weren't 100% likable. And that's okay. Because too many movies nowadays, it's like, oh, well, he's a protagonist, you're supposed to like him. It's like we were trying to break that mold of like having characters that you like sometimes what they do and you don't like them sometimes as well. So,
yeah.
And I feel like as screenwriters, you guys get that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because as screenwriters, we both kind of noticed like a lot of times you'll have the cop that's kind of shadowing them the whole time, and you chose not to do that. Was that to kind of just involve you more so in their world and not break it?
Man, I'm so glad you said that. There were so many different studios that we didn't go with for the movie that was their note.
Oh, really?
100. Oh man, we heard that note so many times of just like there needs to be this cop who's like coming after them and is like always on their tail, and you're just like you just don't get it.
Yeah, but you did have again, I don't want to give too much of it away, but you did have a framing device with Lesley Ann Warren's character that kind of sort of played that part a little bit, telling the story and seeing it through an outsider's point of view, which was good. By the way, she's great. Lesley Ann Warren,
she's
great.
Unbelievable. And this is gonna date me, but I didn't really know who Lesley was before the casting process.
Right.
And once she showed up on set, like I was blown away by her just as much as I was blown away by Michael Shannon. She is unbelievable. I was just blown away with her professionalism, and she has this look on camera that is just unbelievable.
But that speaks highly about her as an actress, though, because I had to look her up too, and once you see her, like, oh yeah, I know her. But the reason is because she disappears into a character. She's not like this.
Right.
She's not like this premier character that carries the movie. No, she's a character that an actress everybody's seen, but she disappears into every character she plays, which is fantastic.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, like I didn't know that she was Cinderella in the 60s.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Like, that's huge, Hey,
I got to ask you, we just as a fanboy a little bit, did Arnold ever show up on set?
He did. So he showed up on set. He showed up on set, and it was one of those super long days. It was actually the day that it was the set. It was, we were destroying the living room. It was a super long day. It was like a 16-hour day. And it hit like, 15th hour, 55 minutes. And I'm like kind of seeing double at this point, right? Like I'm exhausted. I'm over there directing, and like I turn, and as I turn, like I see like half of Arnold's face, like behind this wall. Yeah, like behind this wall. And I make eye contact with him, and he just like slowly disappear. And I'm like, am I seeing this right? Like, what is it? Maybe I'm just exhausted. Did I just see Arnold over there?
Dun, dun, dun,
yeah, exactly.
At first, I told Luke when there was one of the houses you guys were trashing, I was like, "That's Arnold's house." But
It's funny too. It's beautifully ironic. I love that Patrick gets this movie so well. But like, like this morning he was on the Today Show.
oh wow.
Wow.
And he was talking about the movie, and behind him he was in this beautiful mansion. And it was just like beautifully ironic,
Yeah.
Perfect.
Was it almost tempting to not just like take the poster and just put Schwarzenegger across the top, like all those old films we probably all used to watch?
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger, Patrick. No, but
Yeah.
I think this is cool. You're kind of helping to launch his career, and it's going to be big when people remember the film. Hey, so did you film? And I think we talked about this a little bit. Are you a Chicago boy? Is that where you're at?
Yeah. So I grew up in Little Rock, and then I got a full ride to Columbia, and I just kind of stayed there. And
Congrats.
Thanks. Yeah, and then after that, I don't know. Like Chicago is just so underrated. It's unbelievable. Like there's no easier place in the United States to make your movie than in Chicago. And LA has just been so tapped into so many times. And while New York, you're just such a small fish in a big pond.
Mm-hmm.
Like Chicago, I found all my investors here. I found Michael Shannon here and his team. I found everything I need. They have a huge tax credit here. I mean, it just makes it so easy to make a movie here.
Yeah, I'm from the Chicago area. I'm Rockford, Illinois, which is even colder than Chicago. You guys are
nuts. Yeah.
Have you guys seen snow yet this year?
We have. We saw snow before Halloween.
There were some years it would snow like right before Thanksgiving, and then we wouldn't see the ground until March. But I kind of miss a little bit of that. But I respect you guys for being able to withstand that.
Dude, and like it's funny that just things happen the way they happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we were supposed to make Echo so long ago in like 2016. It didn't work out. I thought like if this movie doesn't happen now, it's not going to be relevant anymore. And now it's more relevant than ever, which is great. But yeah.
Yeah, all those student loans have not disappeared, my friend.
Yeah, they have not.
You know what's cool? It's not just student loans. Like the movie does speak to something larger because I noticed that you included a little bit of throwback to like the Occupy movement, which was a lot of the 1%. And you talked about.
Dude, doesn't that feel like years ago?
Yeah.
It feels like years ago. It feels like a decade ago.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. And like there was another movie that was made, or a TV series on, Luke, the one I'm talking about the moms who had to start robbing banks to pay for their family. It's kind of like a relevant type of idea, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, can I ask? And since we're talking about place, like movies of place, and we're talking about Chicago, but you're in. Can you talk about how maybe being in Chicago has affected your filmmaking, or no? I'll just leave with that, and then we'll go on to a different question.
Yeah, I think it has a lot. I mean, like I said, it really is probably the cheapest place to make your movie, and to have the look that Chicago has is absolutely priceless. I mean, there's a reason why even these big studio movies like and like they're not like the greatest of quality, but like the Christmas Office Party, they shot in Chicago because they know that it has a super cinematic feel to it. Now they're doing the new Batman here, and I think they were shooting that over the last few weeks, but it just has this kind of grittiness that I don't think the indie world is really tapped into yet, and that's really what I wanted to do with this.
Yeah, Dark Knight shot there because a lot of it because of it looks like Gotham, a lot of it.
Yeah, and I think it just kind of adds this layer of just big city that I don't know, it's just one of a kind.
I was just up there last year. Was it last year? In 2019 for the Star Wars Celebration Convention. As you know, we a lot of times on the show we cover convention news and different fandoms that go through conventions. And I forgot how much I kind of missed the Chicago area with the towers up above your head, and it's like canyons of buildings. It's really cool. I really
yeah, it's a beautiful city.
Are you going to be like John Hughes, where you just continuously use Chicago because it's such a good character? Like, was he an influence to you?
Yeah, he was. And like, it's just one of those things that once you shoot Chicago and you actually see how it feels, it's hard to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think we have a few more that we've kind of got planned for 2021, and I think 3 out of the 4 in Chicago. So
I love that. One of my favorite directors is Alexander Payne, and he is a Nebraska guy, and he loves Nebraska, and he talks about it, showcases it. And I love it when people make locations like such a part of their film and the flavor of the film. Speaking of locations, I do have a question for you. In your bio and description about you as a filmmaker, it describes you as a Cajun American film director and screenwriter. For folks who are maybe not be as familiar with what that means, can you give us a little background on what is Cajun American and how that has affected your screenwriting and storytelling?
Yeah, so my dad is so my last name is Savoy, but in Cajun French it's Savoy. So my dad is he wrote a book called the Cajun Home Companion, and the Cajun Home Companion was the very first Cajun dictionary. And so my family's like hardcore Cajun, which just means that you're from like a southern part of Louisiana. And the Cajun dialogue is kind of like it's a little bit like Ebonics. It's like a very, very lazy version of Cajun French, where you're using things more off of the way they sound rather than giving it a name. So like popcorn isn't popcorn, it's pop pop, just because it makes that noise. So a lot of Cajun French is just kind of off of the noises, and the Cajun people are when they got actually pushed down from Canada down to Louisiana, and when they got pushed down there, they were always discouraged to speak French, and so slowly that language started to die. And but now it's kind of back, and my dad's like a hardcore Cajun French supporter. I have like Cajun French tattoos now. It's cool.
That's cool. And because most of us, we're familiar with the part of the country that we think is Cajun, and of course Cajun food sounds like it's the best food out there, but I have a feeling what we eat is not truly what true Cajun food is.
It's not. Like once you have real gumbo or like real jambalaya, like it changes your life. They actually have in Lafayette, Louisiana, they have a Cajun music festival that if you can ever go to. So like one of the biggest things about being Cajun is they tell you to live in the moment, right? Like, and so what they do at these Cajun music festivals is they choose weekends where it's supposed to rain, and it's supposed to rain hard. And so they get these tents where these performers can play, and it just rains as hard as it can, and you put on your cowboy boots and you dance in the mud and in the rain, and you just live in the moment.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of like what it's like. So
that's cool. And has that affected your filmmaking at all? Is there anything part of that you think you've carried over?
I think that the next movie, I'm really looking for one really, really hard about Louisiana.
Nice.
And I think the next one that I'm really gunning for is hopefully going to be a Louisiana-based movie, kind of in the bayous, kind of like this Cajun film, but with like a Hollywood taste to it. But
yeah, that's very cool. So we are kind of bumping up against the end here. Cheeseman, I know you have a question.
Yeah, I got a question. So with the editing style, like you had, like I mentioned before, you had the words popping up on screen. You have like pictures flashing up. Like it's a cool editing style that's very fun. Almost, like Zombieland has this playfulness, and your film has that. Why did you choose to go that direction? And tell us about that.
I felt like it was honestly because I'm a millennial. It was this idea of like I want this film to feel like today. I want it to feel like too much information consistently coming at you. And it was interesting. So my editor, his name's Ken O'Keefe, and Ken, he was really kind of pushing that. And once we started doing it, I fell in love with the style of it. And one of the kind of the main attributes of that was we actually put an editing suite in his house, because I was just kind of baffled that it took him, an hour and a half to get to this editing booth, and then an hour and a half to get back home. And I was like, dude, I could rent that equipment for you and just put it in your house. And he said because of that, like he'd be going to sleep and he'd be thinking about these scenes and he just couldn't sleep. And then something would click and he could just run to the next room and start editing immediately. And it worked out really, really, really well. And I think Ken really enjoyed it.
Cool. Anything else, Luke, before we kind of wrap up?
I would just want to hear more about what's next.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a sequel to this?
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I think what, quarantine's kind of given me the time to kind of meditate and to begin writing again. And I think I have something really big next. I think I can't say too much, but I think what it is it's going to be a fresh studio franchise that's completely original.
Cool. And you mentioned quarantine. I was just going to ask one of my final questions was how did that affect your process? Was this film done before, or did you guys have to work through it?
Man, the last day that we shot was February 27th.
Ooh, cutting it close.
Ooh, man. And our actor Gillis that day said that he couldn't leave his hotel. He was so sick.
Yeah.
And so like we just got it in at the very, very end, which we had been editing up to that point. That was our reshoot day, which we had like a week of reshoots. But yeah, I mean, if we hadn't done that, we would have been in hot water if we would have waited an extra 3 days. So luckily we kind of, and editing is for lonely people anyways who sit in a room all day. So
I tell you what, hey, Seth, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about Echo Boomers. It is a pretty fantastic debut from what is, I think you're promising to be a pretty exciting director. You have many, many more films coming out. Hey, where can people see the film? Where's it going to be released at?
So it kind of depends on if you're, what city you're in nowadays, but it's going to be in theaters Friday, November 13th. In majority of major cities outside of LA, since LA is still shut down. But if you are in LA, you can get it on demand the same day. I kind of thought that was a really good marketing idea from Paramount and Saban, is that they wanted to put it on premium VOD the exact same day, just so that you don't have to risk your life to go to the movies. So.
We're not going to risk our lives going to the movies, although these characters risk their lives for some dough and paintings. Thank you again for coming on. Where can people follow you and find out about the Echo Boomers, find out about future projects? Yeah, they can find me on Instagram at Seth Savoy. And yeah, I really enjoyed this interview, guys. This was fun. I'll come back anytime. Oh, we can't wait to have you back. Cheeseman, where can people find you? You can find me on Instagram and Twitter here at She's on Couch, and also on theconguy.com and our website, thescareguy.com, that we talk horror. So you can follow the Con Guy and the Scare Guy on Instagram, Twitter, and some other social media such as YouTube and Facebook. Yeah, when you get ready to make one of those horror movies, which I love, come back and talk to us. Dude, we have one, actually the writer of Echo. His name is Jason Miller. He's doing one that I'm going to help him with in May that we're shooting in Chicago called The Lot. And The Lot is about this family that gets kicked out of their home and they sleep in their car in a parking lot for the night, and these people start messing with them. Oh, geez. That's terrible. That sounds awesome. Yeah. Tell us about it, man. We want to hear about it. You can find me on Twitter at Jim Fry LA. That's Jim Fry, Frye. You can see it there on the screen, LA, or on Instagram at James D. Fry. Follow us here at The Con Guy. Again, Seth, thank you so much. And everybody, have a good day and go see this movie. It comes out this Friday. Bye-bye.